There were two conventions going on this week. The Republican one reminds us why America matters.
I believe America is an exceptional nation, founded on three principles: equality, freedom, and opportunity.
Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime. And that's why I believe the next American century can be better than the last.
Be a radical for freedom. Be a radical for liberty. And be a radical for our republic, for which I stand.
That was awesome. Then there's the naturalization ceremony, reminding us that even as our nation's most prominent voices deem America irredeemably racist and evil, billions beyond our borders would trade their situation with us in a heartbeat. Such ceremonies upset the press, but give actual human beings a lump in their throats. And how about the sister? She'd get things in order.
In 1978, as a medical school student at Georgetown University, I joined the Army to help pay for my tuition and ended up devoting 29 years to the military, serving as a doctor and a surgeon in places like Afghanistan and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula.
Wow, that brings back memories of Sister Maya at St. Gregory's in San Mateo, and chills. After the Dems' week-long tantrum, though, it's good to see adults in the room for once. I would not arm wrestle this lady. I would not pinky wrestle her. She could kick my ass. Sorry, sister, but I'd put her, Tim Scott, Herschel Walker, Jack Brewer, and Burgess Owens up against the entire Democratic Party in a cage match. And what about this guy?
It blows my mind how quickly some of the leadership in this country has forgotten the critical role first responders play in our society. Come on, America. Defunding these vital positions is not the answer.
He could crack me like a walnut. What is it with these people? It's like they're grown-ups on super pills. These are not people you would dare to mob. It's quite a contrast to the other convention, the one on the streets, featuring mobs, arsonists, vandals, looters, and shooters, or as CNN calls it, fiery, mostly peaceful protest.
Multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin over the course of the night, in stark contrast to what we saw over the course of the daytime hours in Kenosha and into the early evening, which were largely peaceful demonstrations in the face of law enforcement. It wasn't until night fell that things began to get a little bit more contentious.
A little bit more contentious. Here lies the problem. For months now, the media and Democrat leaders have been denying what we see with our own eyes. Our country's under attack. They use phrases like mostly peaceful or sporadic violence to downplay this chaotic and even orchestrated violence. And when you counter such opinions with facts about crime, they laugh like clowns.
Democratic cities are in chaos right now. Is this what you want from Joe Biden? And they're going to take your country away, and they're taking down the statues. And
crime is rising as they defund police.
Oh, my gosh, it's so bad. And they get defunding police. It's like...
That did not age well. Now that the violence is out of control and taking lives, however, the mockers changed their tune. But it wasn't your suffering that changed their minds. It was the polls. Tell us about the blind spot, Don.
I think this is a blind spot for Democrats. I think Democrats are ignoring this problem or hoping that it will go away. And it's not going to go away. Joe Biden may be afraid to do it. I'm not sure. Maybe he won't. Maybe he is. He's got to address it. The rioting has to stop. Chris, as you know and I know, it's showing up in the polling. Mm-hmm. It's showing up in focus groups. It is the only thing right now that is sticking.
So that's why the media ignores the violence, because it didn't suit them politically. But once the polls show that mayhem hurts Joe's chances, it's time to speak up. How gross is that? As gross as Brian Stelter in a Speedo. Because it means all those businesses burned, all those people injured, all those jobs and lives lost happened because the press didn't see political value in reporting it. And by ignoring it, it continued. Well, of course, until now.
This is on their watch.
It is on their watch.
Mr. Vice President, if you don't believe that your faith demands that you speak about what's happening in Kenosha right now, not in terms of showing riots and fomenting tension when it's a symptom of a problem.
They have to talk about these vigilantes, and they have to talk about these groups who go in and start this violence. White guys coming in from these groups, starting unrest, promoting violence.
So now they're upset. Sorry, too late. The ugliness we see now, you built that by ignoring its spread because it didn't suit you to point it out. Remember what you said about Antifa?
Now, too many see the protests as the problem. No, the problem is what forced your fellow citizens to take to the streets. Persistent and poisonous inequities and injustice. And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful. People who show up to fight against bigots are not to be judged the same as the bigots, even if they do resort to the same kinds of petty violence.
So where does that petty violence lead? Let's hear from a widow.
As I slept, looted on earth, he was murdered by people who didn't know and just didn't care. He would have done anything to help them. Violence and destruction are not legitimate forms of protest.
Ann Dorn told the story the media chose to ignore because it wasn't beneficial to them. The demonization of law enforcement, the elevation of anarchy as protest has led to what was predicted here some time ago. The mayhem begets mayhem. Here's Rand Paul and his wife barely escaping the mob after Trump's speech. What if there weren't armed officers there? So the mob proves everything said at the convention. Right, Burgess?
Mobs torch our cities while popular members of Congress promotes the same socialism that my father fought against in World War II.
So the convention's theme isn't fear, it's freedom. Freedom from fear. Fear of attack, intolerance, losing your home, business, life. This is a message we need to hear as our country is at the mercy of marauders. But that's what happens when leaders cower before the politically correct and the media and their celebrity darlings choose to back lawlessness than those who fight it. They had Connor Lamb and Stacey Abrams. The Republicans had this guy from Cuba.
I choose President Trump because I choose America. I choose freedom. I still hear my dad. There is no other place to go.
If you want to know who the enemy is, why not hear from a guy who's seen the enemy before? And today he's recognizing that face of dictatorship again. It's on the street, it's on TV, and a few are in Congress pulling Biden's strings. I'm sure there were plenty of Cubans in the 1950s who didn't see Castro coming. And then when he came, it was like, wow, how could this happen to us? Well, the fact is, it can happen to us. It is happening to us. Because your concerns mean nothing to the media or the Dems until it shows up in the polls or at their doorstep. Period. Let's welcome tonight's guest. He's so sharp that rock, paper, scissors is now called rock, paper, Trey Gowdy. His great new book is called Doesn't Hurt to Ask. Fox News contributor and host of the Trey Gowdy podcast, Trey Gowdy. Well, he's so patriotic, the Liberty Bell once took a field trip to see him. Fox and Friends weekend co-host, the very ugly Pete Hegseth. She's quick with a quip and won't take no lip. Host of Sincerely Cat on Fox Nation, Cat Timpf. And he's got more muscles than the Great Barrier Reef. My massive sidekick and host of Nuff Said on Fox Nation, Tyrus. All right, what a lineup. All right, Trey Gowdy, your book is about persuasion. So I want to ask you, how persuasive was this week, this convention to, let's say, undecided folks?
I think they did a great job. I think Tim Scott's story appeals to everyone. I mean, there is a need, Greg, obviously, to acknowledge the base. You want the base to be energized, but the groups that we were struggling with, I mean, you can't listen to Nikki Haley, you can't listen to Tim Scott, and you can't watch the clemency of a man who deserved a second chance of life and got one. I didn't see the angry Donald Trump that the Democrats portrayed.
Yeah, neither did I. You know, we're going to talk about Donald Trump in the next block. Pete, isn't it interesting how preferable non-politicians are to listen to? That's what I knew.
Big time.
Yeah. I mean, that's
big time.
Yeah.
You want to hear their story. And time after time, you heard stories that this is directly how
the president's policies that he promised he would deliver improved my life and my family, or would have prevented Kayla Mueller's parents, who they say our daughter would be alive because they would have taken ISIS seriously and actually brought her back. They spent 4 days shredding the leftist straw man. The left creates the straw man that we're a systemically racist nation where cops are running around intentionally trying to find black men to shoot, and climate change is going to kill us all in 10 years, so we need to socialize every part of our economy. And bit by bit, they broke it down and exposed America versus anarchy. And then all the speakers and all the attendees were poignantly harassed by the mob when they left the event. To put a perfect exclamation point on precisely what the president is talking about. I don't think they could have orchestrated it better. And it was the powerful stories of individuals that I think did it best.
Kat, you almost leapt out of your seat like a cat when I was talking about the non-political people. I bet you want to comment on that.
I do. First, I want to say I learned something very important yesterday, thanks to the RNC. Dana White is actually a dude. I'd always heard the name, and I'm like, oh, one of those lady wrestlers. But he's actually like a very meaty, manly dude. So that was great. Learned that. But yeah, I agree totally. Because whenever I'm hearing anyone speak who is trying to win an election, doesn't matter what party, you always have in your mind like, okay, yeah, they are trying to win something, my vote, with their words, right? It's kind of like you trust them about as much as a guy when you're on a date and it's like you're 4 drinks in and he's like, come home with me, I think you'd love my cat. I'll introduce you to my cat. But again, you mentioned some of those people, but the one that I thought was the real standout was Alice Johnson.
Definitely.
I watched it about 5 times, and I was in tears because it transcended politics, especially because she was saying there are thousands more out there just like me. I have written and spoken and volunteered criminal justice issues for years, and I was like, I'm not doing enough. What more can I do? It really, truly moved me. And just to compare that with the voiceover calling Kamala last week a fighter for criminal or for ending mass incarceration, here's someone who's out here actually doing that. And the only reason she's out here at all is because President Trump freed her. I thought it was so powerful. It transcended politics. It motivated me. And I think a lot of people felt the way that I did. Just such a truly powerful, amazing moment.
All right, Tyrus. So maybe I am biased because I have such an antipathy towards left-wing whiners. But I felt like I was looking at adults, especially when Kat brings up Dana White. Like when you're listening to Dana White. You see Herschel Walker. You see Jack Brewer, which is the best name ever invented, Jack Brewer. I felt like I was around people I want to hang out with in a bar, and I know we'll never get in a bar fight.
Well, you would find a way. I don't doubt you would find a way to start it and then say, Tyrus, I'll be in the bathroom. Let me know when it's over.
That's true.
And then that's exactly what happened. Before I start real quick tonight, Greg, I have to just give my condolences to the Armstrong family. Bullet Barb Armstrong, he passed away this week, and wrestling legend, hero of mine, so I'm sad to see him go. But yeah, you used the term the adult in the room. Herschel Walker is literally the nicest, no-nonsense person you're ever going to meet in your life. He doesn't change expressions much, and I honestly don't think he has to. And he talks softly, but his words are always strong. And I think the RNC did exactly what they should have done. The DNC went with dramatization and celebrities and scenarios and, coming attractions of the world's going to end and they're going to save it. And basically it's, the United States is the new Star Wars and the Empire, President Trump and the Empire. And the RNC said, well, we're just going to be adults and here's our plan. They're sorry, there's no CGIF, there's no fancy, there's no music videos. We're just going to have straight talk and see what you guys think of it. So the Republican Party was the Republican Party. I expect no less. I didn't expect, although there was fireworks, but it was at the end.
Yes.
It was at the end.